Hello and welcome to episode number 208. This is the Project Management Podcast at pm-podcast.com and I am Cornelius Fichtner. Nice to have you with us. A while back, we introduced the Project Management Answer Book written by Jeff Furman to you. I met up with Jeff recently and we recorded this interview here today in which he recounts all the doors that opened up for him simply because of the fact that he wrote down what he knew about project management. So, as you can imagine, this interview is going to be a bit different than the others here on the podcast. Generally speaking, we talk about project management methodologies, tools, techniques, and how to apply them on your project, or stories about great or bad projects. In this interview right now, we want to show you how, with a little effort of writing about what you know, can propel your career into unexpected and positive directions. And of course, if you're a PMP, then you will also earn some PDUs for this writing effort. As you will hear, while Jeff authored a book and became published that way, it all started simply because he began writing about IT and project management. So even if your goal isn't necessarily to become a published author of a book, it's still a good idea to get everything you know about our field written down and blog about it. And Jeff has a few recommendations here for you as well. To me, this is a really encouraging story, showing what a few words a day can do for anyone. And now, please pick up your pencils. The interview is about to start. Enjoy.
The Project Management Podcast's feature interview. Today with Jeff Furman, author of the Project Management Answer Book and PMP instructor.
Good morning, everybody. We are still here at the PMI Global Congress in Dallas, Texas. And with me this morning is Jeff Furman. Hello, Jeff.
Hi, Cornelius. A pleasure to meet you in person.
Right. That's true. We've never met in person, actually.
That's right.
You've been on the program before. You told me just a moment ago, because I couldn't remember, that it was episode 168, in which we introduced your book, the Project Management Answer Book, published by Management Concepts, to our listeners. And in the meantime, and this is really what we want to talk about right now, is you told me that writing this book has opened so many doors for you. So let me start out with a very simple question for you. Was this your first book? Have you been published before?
Yeah, this was my first book, but I had published articles over the years, and I've taught PMP many times.
Okay, so you published articles, you were a published author, so to speak, on the article side, and then Management Concepts approached you and asked you to write this book.
Yeah, they were looking for an experienced senior project manager who also was PMP certified and had a PMP knowledge.
Okay, excellent. And then book got published. It took you probably 25 years to write it. It was terrible and a lot of work, like everybody always says that. And then, after the book was published, what doors suddenly opened up for you?
Well, it's been very exciting. First of all, I'm teaching for other vendors and doing all kinds of new training. I'm teaching an extended 2-week PMP class where I go into great depth. I'm teaching for the military now. I'm teaching for a college in New York City, one of the big colleges. So it's opened up a lot of teaching doors, and in addition, it's opened up a lot of knowledge bases and connections. I've met so many people. You start out thinking, I want to market my book, but the next thing you know, you're meeting people like yourself, Elizabeth Harron, Henry Will, and every time there's an interview, you learn a great deal, and you study and you learn more, and it's quite rewarding and a good challenge.
And they're thinking of having a second edition already.
Yeah, the book has only been out in 2011, but they are looking at a second edition. The new PMBOK won't be out. There's no date set, but probably for at least another year or whatever.
December 31st, 2012 is a likely date.
It's likely, but not official. And so when there's a new PMBOK, I'll probably do a new release, although I'm excited. We're already talking about the new version. I actually have more notes than you would think about all kinds of good stuff I want to add about Agile, more about leadership, all kinds of stuff. I go to a great many seminars in New York City I go probably to 5 seminars a month specifically on Agile, as well as plus more on other PMP topics. And so I'm constantly thinking I want to add another piece to the book here and there.
Right. And the book also opened up a training opportunity for you with the U.S. Was it the Army?
Yeah. This was a very exciting thing. It sounds a little daunting, but I was asked to do a series of classes for the military right on site at various Army bases, including Fort Hood in Texas. We're talking about some in Italy near Venice. There's an American unit where they're building up a sort of a little university for the officers. So I already did a couple, and I'm doing more where in the classroom, imagine everyone in the room is a senior military officer, and they're on fire to learn. Believe it or not, it's the best class ever you can have as a teacher because they're so disciplined and dedicated to learn. And it's nice that they're in a nice, peaceful setting in America, and they can really focus on learning and think about how they'll move on to the next phase of their career. Many of these are guys who've been overseas doing tours of duty, but now they're running projects in the U.S.
Okay. So that was one other venue that opened up, but in the year following the publication of your book, you were asked to participate in how many other books as well?
Well, actually, 3 other books already. 2 came out. The way things are so fast nowadays, I was asked to contribute to 2 different anthologies originally. One is about education and how to be, it's sort of a senior, what can senior trainers share with other instructors? So that book was published. It's called The Book of Road Tested Activities, and it came out in 2011, just a couple months ago. And in fact, it was related to a topic that you interviewed me for. My ethics chapter in my book is a topic that I have a lot of passion for, and I wrote up one of my training activities, which is an interactive game called You Be the Ethicist. So I got inspired to write that from reading the New York Times ethicist column, which used to be Randy Cohen. For many years, he was known as the ethicist. So the same topic that I talked about on my interview with you,
yes,
the second one, I used one of the training exercises that I created for my PMP class, where I get the students to read a column from the ethicist in the paper, and also they listen to it on the podcast version. There's a podcast version also. And then they look at the question that a writer sends into the New York Times as, what should I do in this ethical dilemma that I'm facing? And before they read the answer from the ethicist, I have them really try to put themselves in the shoes of that person and advise them as best they can. And so it's an exercise that opens up people to empathy for total strangers in all kinds of different walks of life. And I try to get them to think, how would you advise this person? And by the way, how would you apply this on your job as a project manager? And how would you further apply it on the PMP test, which is very focused more than ever now on ethical situations? So the more people can put themselves in the shoes of the other person, the more they can think that way.
All right. So you published your book and doors started opening up. We had the door for the PMP classes with the military. You have the second edition of your book.
Yeah. The other book is...
oh, yes.
Yeah.
There were more books, right?
So there was 2 more books. So another book is called Successful Project Management. And that's a book written by one person, Bonnie Biafore. She wrote most of the book herself, but she includes pieces from other writers as sidebars throughout the book. So for her book, I gave an example of a lessons learned topic. So for hers, it was lessons learned, but for the Book of Road Tested Activities, it was a training exercise. So that book is for trainers. And then a third book is going to be, it's called the Pfeiffer Annual, where Pfeiffer is an arm of John Wiley & Sons Publishers, and every year they do an annual, which is kind of a best of training activities from around the world. So it's a very good book for trainers where they can pick it up and find exercises that they can literally pick up and use.
And I bet you also learned a lot about marketing.
Yeah, you start out with a book. My publisher, Management Concepts, has a very good marketing arm, but any writer today needs to get motivated to do their own marketing.
Yeah, you need to get out there and talk to people like me and help market the book.
And it turns out to be the most fun thing, because you meet all kinds of the most interesting people in the field of project management are the people who do the interviews like you, and you learn a lot, and you see yourself in a new way every time you do an interview. So you think, what's the audience that Cornelius has? What is their focus? What's their interest? How can I best help them? So you always put yourself in a position of how can I best help this different new audience, which has different expectations and needs than any other audience.
Right. And all of this really started, and this is the point that we're trying to make here in this interview. All of this really started because you had, shall we call it the guts, to sit down and write down what you knew about project management. And you started to make a name for yourself because you got yourself published through articles. Did you write them online, offline, as a blog? How did you do it?
Yeah, I wrote articles for paper magazines primarily. A funny thing, since you had a background in performing also, I originally wrote articles where I interviewed singer-songwriters in Manhattan. So it's the most interesting thing, you probably can relate to this, to ask people your favorite question that you've always wanted to ask them. So when you're writing an interview with a songwriter, they're going to answer your questions, whereas if you walk up to them after a concert, they're going to say, "Thank you very much, buy my CD." So I was able to ask some pretty famous songwriters, Dan Byrne and Lucy Kaplansky and the Roach Sisters, all kinds of questions. And I wrote articles for the Bergen Record, which was a magazine, a newspaper in New Jersey, still one of the big newspapers, and also a magazine called Performing Songwriter. So that, because I had been published writing those kind of articles, I was asked to write an article for Computer World, and I wrote for Computer World, Software Magazine. There was a number of magazines that I used to write for in the IT field.
Okay, excellent.
So the publishers are looking for people out there who might want to write a book. They like the idea that I had already been published, and they also like that I had what they call a platform, meaning I had an internet site for marketing my classes. It was before I was blogging, but then I started blogging also. So the publishers call it a platform. They like to see how connected are you with people in your networking world. Have you done other writing and your knowledge base.
So your recommendation for a project manager who's currently not published, but who has all this pent-up knowledge in his or her head.
Yeah.
It needs to get out there, right? Where do they start? What should they do? How did you start with your internet platform?
Yeah, well, what I started with, first of all, you always want to think, what is it that I can really share that will help someone else, not just,
right.
Hey, I want to get published. So from the beginning, I was looking in my head to think, what are IT articles that are unique in the world? So every time my team tested with new products, we had some cutting edge things where we were testing with products. We were the first customer of a number of software tools. So I thought this will help people out there sharing our experience. And then you think, what's the magazine that would be good for that kind of content? And nowadays there are a lot of online magazines. There's magazines like PM Forum, PM World Today, many different places. There are a lot of also blogs, which I have written for as well. There's PM Hub. So because of blog sites, there's a lot of places that people can publish nowadays that didn't exist a few years back. But there are still many paper magazines. The trick is always to think, what's the magazine that you can help best with what you want to share with the world? In my case, with PMP, I had taught literally 3,000 hours of PMP classes and trained more than 500 PMPs. So I knew, it just sort of dawned on me that I knew so much that this is a perfect time for me to write a book based on helping so many people and seeing right in their faces what were challenges they faced. Every time someone comes to a class, what are challenges, what are their fears, what are their expectations?
Excellent. And did you start out with your own website at the very beginning, or did you just write the articles and submit them to the print magazines and the online magazine?
Yeah, I was writing articles before there was really the internet at all in a big way. So
and then your website came after the fact.
Yeah, my website started only a few years ago when I started marketing my own classes. I teach as a trainer, as a consultant, so for several training companies. So I first started started with a homegrown website, believe it or not, written by me in HTML, which wouldn't look too cool today if you saw it. But originally, I was one of the few people doing that. So I had a pretty nice website with my pictures. But anyway, I was putting up things like, my next class will be such and such. You can register through here. But it soon became more that I wanted to blog to share knowledge. And I also got a very good web designer to put it together and bring it up to things like connecting it. She did it in WordPress, and she made it self-updating, so I can make updates very quickly.
Yeah. And nowadays, I mean, you can go to blogger.com, you can go to wordpress.com and get a free account there, and within 20, 30 minutes, you have a website set up where you can start publishing your knowledge and get it out of your head and get it out there. I assume this was never the plan, right? You started out writing these articles because you wanted to share. You never thought, oh, I want to do this because I want to become famous or I want to write a book.
Yeah, no, I am a teacher kind of guy. I was a manager for 15 years, but I've always been a trainer. I always like helping people, and even a good project manager, you're trying to help the client, and training can be key to a successful project as well. So when you write an article, you're kind of teaching. You're helping people, giving them the knowledge that can help them right away. They can take what you're giving them and apply it right away as a skill toward their projects.
All right, excellent. Well, folks, listening to this interview, is there an article inside of you? Is there a book inside of you? Very likely, because we are all experienced project managers. We have know-how that other people don't have. So sit down at that computer today and start typing the first few words and get published. Once again, the book that Jeff has written is the Project Management Answer Book by Management Concepts, about 400 pages thick, a practitioner's book on how to manage projects. Jeff, thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you, Cornelius. A pleasure.
And that was my interview with Jeff Furman on how writing about project management will open up new doors for you. That's it for today. Thank you very much for listening. As always, you can find us on the web at pm-podcast.com. If you are a project manager who wants to become a PMP, then the easiest way to do so is with our sister podcast, the Project Management Prepcast, and study for the exam by watching over 38 hours of video training from pmprepcast.com. Please send your emails to info@pm-podcast.com, and when you write, please tell me where in the world you are writing from. And finally, we have this. Money doesn't grow on trees, so let's cut them down, make paper, and write more status reports. Until next time.